Howdy folks, Charlie Bolak here, founder of Swing Away Golf Club. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Clubhouse Podcast, where today we're going to be talking about stress. Stress of business quotas at home, the stress of parenting, and I choose to talk about being able to kind of leave your frustrations at the door, not necessarily your stress, but if you can leave your frustrations at the door, you've got a lot better chance of keeping that stress out of there. And then taking it to the golf world, we're going to talk about, first of all, the way Wyndham Clark dealt with the stress. I mean, even with people out there booing him, probably me being one of them. If you got to be honest, you got to call it and call it. The stress of walking down those last few holes, knowing that your lead's down to one, whereas it was, it's been as much as I think 6 strokes, to get there on Sunday, to be carrying that much weight on your shoulders. I couldn't do that. I could not handle the stress of that. I would have sent balls off into the stands and any lake or bunker or any nearby obstacle. So how do you get around that? How do you teach yourself to deal with that kind of stress as opposed to finding yourself in that stressful situation, feeling the heartbeat, rapid breath, and just not being able to pull it all together and hit a good putt? Talk about all 3 of those things in the show today. Stick around. It's going to be a great one. Thanks for being here. Have a great day. Again, this is live on the Clubhouse with Charlie Bolak. And we're going to talk about a little bit of house cleaning before we get in here. So Swing Away, what's been going on? How's it been going? As we've kind of rolled into what I would call getting into the kind of the beginnings of the dog days of summer here, we are seeing a little uptick in business. And is it the marketing we've been doing? Is it the $35 an hour bay rentals here that you can see right there? I don't know. That's something we've talked about on the show before. There's no real way to pinpoint what you've done that's worked. When you find something that's working, obviously you stick with it, try to tweak what you can here and there, but obviously we're not going to be messing with much over the next little while because we feel like we're on a good trajectory. We've got some really good staff helping us out around here. We've got some great new customers, some excellent, returning customers. We're building up a little bit of a membership base. So thank you all for joining the ride with us here, following the journey. So let's see, house cleaning. What are we doing? We're keeping the $35 bays at least through the end of June. We're going to look and see in July what we're kind of looking like business wise. Ultimately, we'd like to get to 50 in the dog days, and then kind of through some of that shoulder time in the fall, maybe see a little bit of a dip back down to 35 as I try to keep people out of sitting at home and watching Alabama-Auburn football games and coming down to Swing Away and playing a little golf. So you might see a little bit of that. And then ultimately, we will switch to our winter pricing probably sometime around the fall back time change. And that just kind of allows us to recoup some of the revenue we've lost over the summer while everybody was out on the golf courses. Hopefully lets us get caught up on some things we've gotten a little behind on. And it's going to be a great time. US Open was great. Had some great guys come in, sit around, watch it with us, play some golf. Let's see busy weekend. Great Friday, great Saturday, even a pretty good Sunday. I sat up here and we really didn't know what to expect. So it was me and all 3 of our kids while we had an open house at the house. Long story, won't get into that. But so we were up here the majority of the day. And then I think about 11:30, 12 o'clock, we filled up for a little while. And most of it was sons with their dads. And it's just great to watch. That's one of my favorite parts about this place is seeing the interaction of the people that come in, the kind of people that are supporting us, and getting to know some of these people. So, it's been a great time. We're going to keep this ride going as absolutely long as we can, and hopefully keep meeting great people and playing some golf along the way. So if you hadn't had a chance to come see us. It's a great time. Swing Away Golf Club. All right, we're going to go take a little break, pay some bills, and we'll be right back to jump into the show. Stress management going to be a great one. Thanks for joining.
Great golf brings people together. At Swing Away Golf Club, the experience is built for golfers and everyone who comes with them. Experience North America's only mechanically actuated virtual green with ball tracking by PuttView, paired with Full Swing Pro 2.0 simulators trusted by Tiger Woods and John Ram. Every swing is captured, every shot is real, and every putt reacts exactly like it would on the course. Serious golfers can dial in their game with tour-level feedback and unmatched realism. And for friends and family, Swing Away offers a comfortable, welcoming space with great food, a full-service bar, and fun interactive experiences that make it easy for anyone to just jump in and enjoy the moment. Play iconic courses from around the world, share the experience together, and enjoy a place where competition, connection, and atmosphere all come together. Swing Away Golf Club. Practice, play, win.
All right, welcome back here to the Clubhouse Podcast with Charley Bolak, and jumping right into stress is the name of the game, and I have felt that this last year more than I ever thought possible. And man, I tell you what, we've had some challenges, some joys, some struggles, just some great experiences all together. So join in, let's talk about it. Looking at it from the sales perspective, I tied it to quotas. Different industries call your quota different things. You got your target, your goals, your sales numbers, whatever the case may be. Ultimately, they are looking at how many sales are you generating, how much per sale, whether it's total revenue, margin, if you're selling things. There's so many ways to look at it, but ultimately at the end of the day, they're looking at your performance, they're rating your performance, they're compensating you off your performance. And so those numbers are really just as important as a number in the business world can be, is your projections. And we've kind of talked a lot about projections as well, because, my projections here at Swing Away were just wildly off, wildly pre-opening, expectations. Basically what you do is you look at the demographics of an area. You say, okay, these people have the disposable income. This amount of these people are into golf. This is the amount of people I expect. This is how much revenue I expect per person. And it's a whole formula, and it builds a whole spreadsheet. And it's a virtual business or a numbers business long before it's an actual physical brick and mortar business. And, it rolls up in the corporate world too. Same thing. I was in heavy equipment. It would start at the territory level. The projections we would send up our thoughts of what we're going to do that year to our next level. They would, aggregate it with all of their direct reports, kick it on up, all the way until it gets to the CEO's desk and say, okay, this is what we think we're going to do as a company in 2027, which I think, let's see, what time of year is it? Yeah, they're going to start looking at 2027. I know the bigger guys have been looking at it for a while, but it gets down to the branch level about this time of year, where they'll start asking you to think about what you're going to do next year, aggregate it, come up with a number, you send it up to them, it gets bumped all the way back up, and then it comes all the way back down for you to approve and say, okay, is this an attainable number? And, generally my answer was no. The number I sent you the first time before it went up and came back down, that was the number I thought was attainable. But it never quite works out that way. People try to sandbag, because they know it's going to get marked up and then come back down. The projections-based comp plans, in my opinion, are just a way for people with more financial literacy to kind of scam the people that don't. And again, I'm not saying that every corporation out there is evil. I'm not even saying corporations that I've worked for, and I'm not saying even anybody's evil. I'm saying there's some inherent greed built into the system when people at the top have to show a certain defined amount. Generally, it's about 8%, growth that a CEO has to show, or improvement of some sort. It doesn't, you can always come out and say, hey, next year we expect our numbers to drop, but this is what we're going to do to make sure our margins stay the same or increase at my 8%, because somewhere or another, they've got to have that 8% to justify their existence. That's where you see these huge CEO price tags, and we're not going to get into the economics of that today. There are parts of it I agree with, parts of it I don't. Someday, but that'll be another show for another time once we get a big enough fish on here to see their thoughts and kind of play off some of that. So, breaking it back down, we kind of went a long way around the sales quota. We talked about how they're kind of inherently flawed because it's forward-looking, right? There's no way to say, okay, I'm going to do 874,361, down to the penny of estimating what you're going to do. Even if you're a mature company, something's going to happen. You're going to grow somewhere, you're going to shrink somewhere, you're going to pick up a customer, you're going to lose a customer, pick up a deal, lose a deal. It just, it's the nature of cyclical business, and sales is a cycle. Again, let's take that all around from a 25,000 foot view and bring it down to how it translates into stress for the average guy, was I'll tell you this, when I got out into my first, sales territory in heavy equipment, we had this great little app and everybody knows the company. It's Salesforce. And it's, again, Salesforce is a great tool. I mean, most of these companies, these CRM platforms, they're not going to get to where they're at. They're not going to be the type of company that Salesforce is if they don't provide a value or a valuable service. So while sales reps may absolutely hate some of this stuff, at its heart, it's a great tool when properly used. We just don't see it out there where, upper management is rolling it out to where it makes it all the way down to the guy in the trenches who's actually using it, who actually knows how to use it as a tool rather than, just something that his boss wants him to do. And again, that the way it adds to the stress of the quota is, it was basically real time. I could refresh that app and see where I was month to date, so minute by minute. I know if I've got something that's getting ready to bill and I'm 25 grand short, this thing's only going to bill 17.5. So we're $6,500 short, and there's things I can do at that point to kind of manipulate at the local level. If I've got a guy that I've been, staying away from or avoiding because I know he's got a pump that he should have called off, that he might have forgotten, I need a few more days to get, the full cycle. Well, if I need that 6,000 to hit my monthly, then I'm going to go ahead and call him and say, hey, you done with that pump? Yeah, let me go ahead and pull it off rent. I'm going to tell my guys, hey, get that out by the 29th or 30th or whatever, end of the month. Let's get that off and build. And that way I hit my goal. But, is the customer served well at the end of the day? Is the corporation served well at the end of the day? In that particular situation or example, I feel like the customer was better served because I'm calling him and saying, hey, if you're done with that, let's get it off rent, save you a little bit of money. The rep, am I better served? Because, I took a little bit of money now when I could have had more money the next month, but it was accelerating a bill to get my numbers for this month. Ultimately, at the end of the day, why did I have to do that? Why did that matter? Because, if I hit that quota, then I get this much of an accelerator or I get this much of a bonus on top of the stuff that I've already hit. So, yeah, they're giving you incentives to do, not necessarily, it's not shady, right? Because the customer's coming out better. The company doesn't necessarily care if they get another day, another 2 days, another cycle out of that piece of equipment. Ultimately, it will affect the utilization number, but not that much because it's already been on rent. You're already hitting it with an invoice, that month. So, it's already got a cost offset based on revenue. Why is that necessary? Why is that stress necessary in my life? What ultimately does that benefit? Who ultimately does that benefit? Having that accelerator in there, having that hard target, and having benefits associated with reaching that hard target. I'm all about aligning incentives, right, to where the employee is incentivized to take care of the company, who's incentivized to take care of the customer, who's incentivized to take care of the rep, who's incentivized to, and you get that perfect harmonious, cycle, and you've really built something. You're going to make a lot of money. You're going to have a successful business. But what happens is you build that up, you go public, you get multiple people in there saying, okay, we've got to do this here, we've got to do this here, we've got to do this here, and that's going to affect the whole. And right, that is a growth strategy. That is what, has to happen. What gets missed is as these things go full circle, a lot of things are getting lopped off as growth occurs and as some of these cycles occur naturally. Who's to say ultimately if change is better in that situation? Everybody says hindsight's 20/20. Yeah, you can go parse the numbers historically, but you can still never say what would have been, what could have been, what might have been, what should have been, because you don't know. You will never know until it's actually done, and if it's not, it will always be could have been. I think as a business owner, I've had to teach myself to kind of think like that and not dwell on some of these decisions. Some of these smaller decisions that I've made that have cost me money. I've made some that have made me money in swing away, right? We're not talking about in the corporate world. We're taking this down now to the individual small business level, and I've talked about it a few shows ago. It is toggling on and off the credit card requirement to book here at Swingaway. And every time I do it, I see a sharp decrease in my numbers, and then I turn it back on or turn it back off, and it goes back up. But I do get some people, there's incremental gains too, because when I'm doing that, the people that are booking are putting credit cards on file. And ultimately that helps me protect the business from some of these no-shows. Let's see, and that's a whole nother, stress that small business stress that we didn't choose to talk about that as one of our topics today, but it always kind of leaches into the conversations because it is there. And for those that haven't followed the journey to this point yet, it's we started Swingaway Golf Club about a year ago. We got the idea in October of, I think, 24. It took 222 days to get open, then another month or so to get our liquor license off the ground. And I had these great grand projections that we talked about earlier, and it's, I didn't pull them out of thin air. It was me and a team of people, the SBDC, the SBA crew at South State Bank. I mean, lots of people that have been doing this for a while and that know the best ways to do these things. And we were still just so wildly off. How can you base people's pay off this? How can you base people's lives off something that is, I always knew they were relatively flawed, but I guess I just never understood the extent to which they're flawed. I'm sure there's great finance people out there that can get pretty close on some of the more mature businesses, but the person with that level of intuition would have to be few and far between. And if I met one, I'd shake their hand because this stuff's tough. All right, let's see. Stress of sales quotas. And we could update the app real time. You know your number. You don't set your number yourself. And that's, when they took the ability for the rep to have some skin in the game as far as these numbers go, then I feel like they lost accountability. Like I never felt tied to my sales number, meaning it wasn't my number. So I felt financially, I'd be rewarded if I made it, but it was just never a part of my being of, hey, I have to hit this goal for, the purposes of this is my identity as a great salesperson. I kind of had my idea of where I wanted to be growth-wise and things like that, but I truly think to talk to some of those leaders out there, if you really can find a way to get those numbers to mean something to the person, meaning like you teach them to do the projections and trust them to do them honestly, accurately, and not sandbag. And that's got to be the answer. That's got to be the way it's done, because it's when it's manipulated so far up at the top, the people that haven't been in a sales territory in 30 years, if ever, they're just not going to make meaningful, impactful changes to these. They'll have 30,000 foot view, and maybe they'll know something that will affect it down here somewhere along the middle of the chain, or the cycle. But I don't think that the responsibility for building, these types of comp plans should be left way up here. Maybe let it roll down a couple levels and give them a budget and say, hey, recruit, retain, do whatever you need to do with this budget right here. Get me the best people and keep them. And that's the type of direction the CEO needs to be able to give and walk away.
Great golf brings people together. At Swingaway Golf Club, the experience is built for golfers and everyone who comes with them. Experience North America's only mechanically actuated virtual green with ball tracking by PuttView, paired with Full Swing Pro 2.0 simulators trusted by Tiger Woods and John Ram. Every swing is captured, every shot is real, and every putt reacts exactly like it would on the course. Serious golfers can dial in their game with tour-level feedback and unmatched realism. And for friends and family, Swingaway offers a comfortable, welcoming space with great food, a full-service bar, and fun, interactive experiences that make it easy for anyone to just jump in and enjoy the moment. Play iconic courses from around the world, share the experience together, and enjoy a place where competition, connection, and atmosphere all come together. Swingaway Golf Club. Practice, play, win.
Thanks for sticking around here. Welcome back to the Clubhouse with Charley Bolak. We are talking about stress. We've gone through the stress of sales quotas, the business world. One thing I did miss that I wanted to come back to, though, was two types of pressure. These types of quotas, they bring pressure inherently, right? There's good pressure, there's bad pressure. And in my research for the show, I found out that there's names for them. Paralyzing pressure and productive pressure. There is a certain amount of productive pressure, and I think we as high-performing individuals probably assign a fair amount of that pressure to ourselves. I know my wife, I've told her this, and I don't think she'll be upset about me, bringing this to the show, because she is driven to be great at what she does, whether it's professionally as an attorney or as a mother, as a wife. I've never seen a more intentional person about wanting to just be the best, just be the best. I definitely want to be good, but I don't think I wake up in the morning and say I want to be the best father that's ever walked planet Earth. Whereas I think she just has that drive and say, you know what, somebody did this better. I'm going to do this better than them. And it's, I don't know, somebody chime in and let me know. I hope I don't hurt any feelings. Could it be the competitive nature of the female brain? I know there's competitive males, but it's a different type of competitive nature. That's my hypothesis, and it just kind of struck me as we were talking. But somebody chime in and let us know. I'm curious about everybody's thoughts there. All right, getting into the stress of fatherhood. The topic we're going to be is leaving all the other stress at home. Parenting can be stressful in and of itself. How do you separate that out when you come into the house? If you can drop the work stress at the door, the financial stress at the door, if you came here looking for an answer, I don't know either. If somebody does have the answer, please, and I'm sure there's tons of people that'll help you out. I'm sure it's going to be therapy based to help work through some of your stuff. They're not going to, tell you or judge you or lock you away. It's, hey, yeah, this is a flaw. You're right. This is what you can do to kind of lessen the impact of that on your life. And so some of those tricks over the years, have kind of been, one, when you're at that threshold, if you're coming home from a hard day of work, pause at the threshold and make it a physical act. Stop at the threshold, take a deep breath or two and say, okay, we are now shifting gears. Our day is now going from one phase to the next. One phase, problems here, just kind of like Dumbledore does with his wand, and Harry Potter just kind of pulls some of that stuff out. And again, that's a muscle. That's not something that's going to happen overnight. That's not something you can just stop. If you're having the worst day of your life, you can't stop at the threshold. Oh, okay, done. Let's go. But if you work on it, if you work on it and work on it and work on it, you get better at it. And incremental improvements are really the only way that I make it through my parenting journey, because I know I'm extremely flawed. I also know that I work hard to kind of get past some of those flaws and minimize their impact to my life, to my kids' life, to my wife's life. These are all tricks and tools, and definitely no judgment. No, if you know me, I'm probably one of the least judgmental people you'll ever meet, because I have been judged, harshly over the years, and most of it deserved. I will absolutely own that. But I will say that has taught me lessons later in life that have really made a meaningful impact in my life. And so I appreciate those journeys from, long ago. They've kind of built me into the person that comes onto the TV screen right here. Transitioning ideas, that's what we're talking about. Have those deep breaths, have a way. One thing Anna and I are really good at is, noticing when you're at that point and, being able to go to your spouse and say, hey, I'm here, can you take them for a minute? Just let me go, take some breaths, let me go. And she's been great about it, and she's turned around and asked me the same thing. And then hopefully I've been as good about it for her as well. Somebody told me the other day they felt bad about getting to that point or regretful about, and it's not, if you regret mistakes on a day to day, I'm sorry for you, because that's got to be tough. Everybody makes mistakes constantly, every day as we go. I just left one of my favorite coffee cups on top of my car the other day, and I went back on the ring to see if I could see, and sure enough, there it was, and never found it. So, and that's just a simple mistake. It happens to the best of us, and mistakes get, scalably larger, the more you're dealing with, the more you got on your plate. So, being able to forgive yourself and give yourself an honest, measuring stick. That's really the only way to grow as an individual, to grow as a human being, to grow as a parent. It's been so meaningful for me. Even recently, being able to separate, all of this. I mean, because if I was taking the stress of swing away home every day, I would have been asked to leave my home quite some time ago. It's hard. It's hard. Starting a business is hard. Running a business is hard. Having 3 young kids is hard. Having a spouse that works, 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week is hard. And I'm not saying that it's hard just for me. I know it's hard for everybody. And learning to have that empathy, towards yourself as well as others. That's something that I know a lot of people work for, especially the higher performing people. It's hard when you hold yourself to a certain level of accountability not to hold others to that same level of accountability, because it's just an internal expectation of yourself, and why can't others meet that? And that's another place therapy has helped me a lot. It is, by understanding that not everybody is wired like we are. There are people that are not type A, that don't have that go right now instant satisfaction or gratification type of need or necessity. But recognizing that in yourself, knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, giving yourself some grace. Was that 2 shows ago, I think? Just giving yourself grace. Everybody's going to mess up, just like hitting a bad shot in golf. So, kind of rolling this into golf. Thank you for sticking around for the parenthood part of it. Sorry, I kind of went down a bit of a rabbit hole there, but it all kind of ties into the same thing. When you're in these stressful periods of your life, which will come in cycles, there sometimes will be higher stress, sometimes will be lower stress. Recognizing the patterns, knowing yourself well enough to know the outputs you're getting define where your head's at. I'm getting better at this now. I'm not great at this, but I can start to kind of see myself going down a path, right? If it's been a bad day and I'm starting to kind of get angry, and I'm letting that anger kind of feed off some of the decisions that I'm making and some of the actions that I'm taking, it can spiral quick. It can go from, just I've been a bad day to, I just cussed out a vendor, told a customer where to go and how to get there, and had a nice little spat with my wife. It can be avoided by knowing yourself, knowing ways of kind of slowing these emotions down. And right now, I'm so early in my journey, my response can be as much as, hey, I need a minute, because I don't know exactly the best way to go through it, but I do know that I need to turn it off for a second, slow it down, get myself under control, and then reapproach the situation. So, Wyndham Clark, I owe you an apology. I was on the bandwagon of the guys that if I would have been there, I'm sure I might have been booing you. I don't know if I don't think because I don't like the idea of doing that on a golf course. But, to the people that did boo him, he made a mistake, at Oakmont Country Club. We've all been there. I made a mistake a couple months ago, a pretty big one. And, I'm sure there'd be people that would boo me if I was leading the U.S. Open. But to be able to do what he did, to the stress of the situation, the pressure of the situation, knowing that you had a 6-7 shot lead at one point, now you're down to 1 stroke lead with 4 holes left, and people have momentum, you're going backwards. It's to be able to hold it all together, get to that final green, ice the putt. I mean, good on you. I mean, just I couldn't have done it. I couldn't imagine what it would be like, the pressure, the heartbeat, the nerves, the jitters, trying to hit those last few shots. Man, I mean, just phenomenal job. Great tournament to watch. I mean, just a wonderful tournament to have on Father's Day. I think dads that like golf love that kind of I mean, I hate to say drama, but it is. There's so many. Scotty could have caught fire those last couple of holes. Sam Burns could have made a couple more putts. I mean, there were just so many things right there at the end, that could have happened. So great weekend for golf. Great weekend for me personally. For our family, had a great time. Swing Away was busy, so it was excellent. That was Wyndham, and seeing how he dealt with the stress and the pressure. And we'll see if we can't find some between the next week or so, some interviews with him, kind of talking about it, because I know perspective that some of these guys can give into those situations is just incredible to hear. But relating that to you, the personal golfer, whether you're in a weekend dogfight group or you got some buddies you go out and gamble with, or if you just, go out and play for bragging rights every now and then with several different folks. It's pressure can be put out there. And I've always said to my buddies, you want me to hit one in a lake, just put $100 bill, right by the golf ball and say, hey, that's yours if you put it on the green. And I'll find the closest lake to shank it in. I don't do well with that type of pressure. Ultimately, I believe it's because it's a muscle I've never really flexed. I played baseball until, I don't know, probably right until I got into high school. I played, tennis, never competitively, soccer, never very competitively. So just never got into some of those pressure type situations. And when I started to get it on the golf course, I mean, nerves right there. I mean, I still get the jitters hunting. If a doe walks out, I'll still get a little shaky there. So it's a muscle that you have to flex, and the guys that can do it talk about when they couldn't. Right. So I don't think anybody is born cool as a cucumber. Not having trouble sitting over. It's guys that have done it. I mean, I'm with Teddy getting a little bit older now and being a pretty good golfer. I mean, we're starting to look at, when they start, playing, and there's recreational and it gets competitive early. It looks like 8 to 10, they're playing little mini tournaments and things like that. So you start flexing that muscle at 10, by the time he's 12, 15, he's probably been in more high pressure situations, athletic situations than I have. Now, I've been in some pretty high pressure negotiations before. So, I say that's always a little bit different. It's fun. It's exciting. Next time you play with a buddy of yours, just put something on the line, put $1. What does it matter? And if you're against gambling, make it a punisher. Hey, you got to wear your hat backwards at dinner or something like that. Play for something. See how it feels. I promise you, it feels a little bit different when there's something on the line and you're keeping score. There is an air of competition. Some people like it, and I guess some people don't. So, if it's not your thing, don't do it. Well, guys, that's going to wrap it up for our show today. Thank you so much for joining the Clubhouse with Charley Bolak. Today was our episode on stress. We would love some follow-up here. If you want to start some conversation on some of these videos that are going to be posted over the next week or so, we'd love to talk about it. We respond to all of our comments. Thanks for joining. We'll see you soon. Again, this is Live on the Clubhouse with Charley Bolak.